For those who do not know me, I'm the president. My name is Luca Bonomi. I'm the president of the Dante Alighieri here in Siena. And I have the privilege to introduce you Father Joseph Jiang, priest of the Archdiocese of St. Louis in the United States. He was ordinated a priest in St. Louis in 2010. He has been assigned by his Archbishop to pursue a doctorate in the Code of Canon Law at the Gregorian University in Rome. Currently, he is a student in our language school. And beyond everything, he is a great friend of us, of our school, and we are very pleased to start this new events, inviting different students, former students, or students to give a presentation in their language about Siena, what they loved about Siena. So it's a pleasure for me to leave the panel to Father Joseph. Thank you very much.
Well, I feel very honored that Dr. Luca Bonomi would invite me to give this presentation on Siena. Obviously, I am not an expert. I cannot speak so eloquently about this great city. And I know I will not do her justice in showing her true beauty to all of you. But hopefully, if you have not been to Siena, I can lend you my eyes, my heart, my soul to experience a bit the Siena I fall in love with. First of all, what's not loved about Siena? Siena has great food, right? Great culture, and faith is beautiful. It's a very simple PowerPoint. So this is the one of the meals I was there first evening with my mom. We had a chance to go to this wonderful dinner at La Compagnia dei Vinatieri. Also, Siena being the city of St. Catherine of Siena, the city greatest Eucharistic miracle in the world. I would be remiss if I were not to thank my friends from Dante Alighieri for with such kindness you have treated me while I was in Siena, especially my teacher and good friend Enzo. Enzo, you're a good man. You have touched me deeply by your care and concern for others, especially for those who work with you at the school. And your kindness and goodness is also one of the reasons that draws me back to Siena. Beautiful places are beautiful, but it's the people who live there make the place more beautiful. So I'm grateful to God for having been given this opportunity to study in Siena. The answer is you bet, I'm going back once I'm allowed to go back. And hopefully, let me begin with my little daily routine in Siena. And first of all, Don Roberto, the pastor of San Martino, I believe he's the vicar of the city of Siena, was kind enough, not knowing me, to agree to host me in his rectory. From the front steps of San Martino to the Campo is about 200 yards. It's very, very close. So every morning, I would get up at 6 a.m., like all the Italians do, make my coffee on the stove with I believe it's Bialetti Mocha Express. I make my coffee, then I will pray my divine office, showered, dressed, and then leave my apartment by 7:25. It is about a 5-minute quick walk to San Cristoforo, where I would say Mass every morning. I would spend half an hour in meditation before Mass. It's quite beautiful. Every morning, San Cristoforo did not have an early morning Mass. I believe the early morning Mass, Monday to Friday, is at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. in the evening. So Sister Maria Angela would open the church for me in the morning for me to say Mass. It's quite beautiful. So every morning I'll get there by 7:30. Very often Sister Maria Angela will be mopping the floor. When she sees me walking into the church, San Cristoforo is very, very small. Hopefully we'll show you a picture. Here's the Campo. I'll be walking across the Campo, then to San Cristoforo for Mass. So very often, she would see me, and she'd be calling me out from the other side of the church, the little church. Ciao, Giuseppe, Giuseppe, ciao. And then I would spend my half an hour kind of on the right-hand side of the altar. There's a tabernacle there with a couple pews and some chairs. So very often, there's an elderly Italian lady would come, pray behind me, right before first she did not know I was offering Mass at 8. Apparently she was the lector for the following Mass. Very often during my Mass, English Mass, she would go to the lectern and read, review the readings. But once she realized I was offering Mass, and then she would leave the church early before I offered the Mass, before I left for the sacristy. Very often she would come up to the tabernacle. The tabernacle is very, fixed on the wall, but people, you can reach it. She would come and genuflect. As she was walking away, she would gently tap on the tabernacle 3 times. The sense of familiarity with God, indeed a genuine intimate, and touched me profoundly. It's always the little things. And after Mass, I would pray my rosary and to school. Siena is a very small town built on the hill inside the city. Everything's very, very small. Very close. It's about a 20-minute walk to everywhere. So I can barely finish my rosary when I get to school. I'll spend 3 hours with my teacher Enzo, study Italian. Then after school, I'll be walking back to my apartment while I finish my rosary. I'm walking across the campo from the other side while passing the bronze mark of San Bernardino on the floor in front of the Palazzo Pubblico, when the saint preached to the town of Siena. I'll go home, can toast 2 pieces of bread, and I'll make a sandwich with prosciutto, mortadella, and little arugula. And talking about making me very hungry. Then I study a little bit, then I will take a little repose. Obviously required to study Italian. And then I would have put on my earphone and listen to Italian while walking to the Basilica of St. Catherine of Siena to finish my holy hour there. And after that, I will put it back on my Italian, walking around the town, just walking and studying on my phone, on my way home. Very often, I would stop by the grocery store, Conet, in the city. And actually, it's a funny story. My last evening in Siena, not knowing it was my last evening. Italians will tell like Enzo and Luca, and when you go to the grocery store to talk to the butcher, not unlike the U.S. Orders this, that, it's done. There has to be a chat. So my last evening in Siena, I was scheduled to offer Mass at the Basilica of St. Catherine. And that a weekend before, all the Masses were canceled. The Mass was a private Mass. I was hoping that they would still let me do it. So I was speaking to Andrea. Doesn't matter how much I begged him, he said, no, Father, no. I was like, so disappointed. So I said, heck with it. I'm gonna go to the grocery store, very close to St. Catherine of Siena's. I'm gonna try this recipe, and Enzo gave us in class. So I'm gonna make this zuppa di pesce. So I went there, I've been on my way there rehearsing, in Italian, what I want. And, I want to buy 300 grams of shrimp. Vorrei comprare 3 etti di gamberi. No, confidence. So I got there, got the fish stand, very confidently said, I want 300 grams of shrimp. He looked at me and said, che cosa fa? What are you making? I said, zuppa di pesce. He telling me, like, you need this fish, and calamari. E basta. Clean out the fish for me and hand it over to me. It's an ecco. This is how you make a zuppa di pesce. So how can I love Italy, to hear stories like that? So then I will go home, cook my dinner, spend 2 hours studying. And then before going to bed, about 10 p.m. or so, I read my missal in Italian to rehearse, be able to say Mass in Italian. Then bedtime, the next day, I'll do the same thing over again. On some days, I will go to St. Francis and stop, and on the way, stopping every church I see that is open to be a visit to our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. You might think it sounds so boring, but I guarantee you this is one of the most beautiful times in my life I've ever spent on this earth. I've been a priest for 10 years. Actually, today's my anniversary. I was just so privileged to live under the shadow of St. Catherine of Siena and the Eucharistic Miracle. To think walking on the same streets there's so many wonderful saints have walked on, in the midst of a city filled with so much culture, history, art, with such good food. I was like a monk living in the world, simply praying and studying. But if you were to look for the noise of the world, or the grandiose attractions of mega cities, I certainly recommend you not to come to Siena. Don't ruin our town, because you will be disappointed by its simple elegance, because Siena speaks subtly and requires you to listen not simply with your ears, but with your heart and your soul. Siena is not a city that wows you, but rather a city that puts your soul in peace and in contact with what is divine. If I may use pride in its best light and its best and most positive connotation, and humility in the same sentence, this is how I would describe Siena. When you walk into the Piazza del Campo, where the Palio will take place each year, when you're beholding the Torre del Mangia, the Palazzo Pubblico, St. Catherine Siena, sorry, a little slow here. This is where her incorrupted head is. We can talk a little more about that. And then there's one of the evenings when I walk home after a storm from St. Catherine Siena. And then you behold the black, white marbled cathedral, the Duomo. It truly speaks to you the pride of the Sienese people, how proud of their city they are and their culture, as they should, because the Piazza del Campo is just that iconic. Then walking across the Campo, when we walk up the hill westward, about a 15-minute walk, you will find another major attraction that draws so many pilgrims to the city, the Basilica of St. Catherine of Siena, where St. Catherine's corrupt head is venerated. But on your way to St. Catherine of Siena's, you will come up the church of San Cristoforo, I mentioned a little bit earlier, where I would say Mass every day. If you make a right turn on the left-hand side of the church, walking down the hill, you'll come upon the Basilica of St. Francis, where the greatest Eucharistic miracle is reserved and venerated. When you're walking into these two major basilicas of great importance to the Catholic Church, you'll be surprised by the humility and simplicity. Looking around, you will find the peeling walls. Raising your eyes, you will see the uncovered wooden beams. You can see the wooden beams uncovered. Walking around without paying attention, you'll be disappointed by their simplicity. You might even ask and be shocked to ask, is this where the honor our divine Lord in the Holy Eucharist? Is this where the honor the saint who changed the course of history? Grandeur, please. No, the incarnation of God is humble. Without great trumpets, he quietly entered into the world, took on the form of a slave. He humbly comes down from heaven to dwell in the Holy Eucharist. And St. Catherine of Siena, the way with which she lived out her life is through humility. Because humility, according to St. Therese of Lisieux, is the water that nourishes our soul. When I talk about St. Catherine of Siena, I cannot help but think of divine humor. I think the saints are just playful as they are in heaven as they were on earth, probably even more so. And very often in life, we think it's we who befriend the saints, right? I read this saint's biography, I heard this saint's story, and therefore I want to know the saint more. No, but rather the opposite. So very often it's the saint who chooses us. And I'll be honest, I did not know much about St. Catherine of Siena, except giving a short homily every year on her feast day, enough to be dangerous. While I was in Siena, even though every single day I went to her basilica, prayed before her head, I knew very little about her life. Because COVID-19, I had to return to St. Louis. When I arrived back to St. Louis after quarantine, divine sense of humor, I had a book from the Merkleys, some of my best friends, waiting for me, entitled Catherine of Siena. When you receive knowledge from the saint, how can you not read it? So I used that book for meditation. In this book, certain aspects of her life we simply cannot even begin to imitate. A young woman who lived in the Middle Ages, for the most of her life, not able to read and write, yet had an extraordinary power to make Pope Gregory XI to move from Avignon back to Rome. There's this powerful story here. Pope Gregory XI, before being elected to be the Supreme Pontiff, he made a secret promise to God. If he were to be elected, he would move the Holy See, the papacy, from Avignon back to Rome. He told no one. Yet St. Catherine of Siena was the one who reminded him that he made a promise to God. And then often when she prayed, she would levitate. She would have the extraordinary visions, the gift of reading souls. She would even have the power of working miracles, driving out demons. The list goes on and on. Let me assure you, friends, these gifts are not meant for us to have or imitate. These extraordinary gifts she possessed and those marvelous signs she performed were not for her glory either. They were not meant to exalt her, but to strengthen the faith of those who are weak, those who are hesitant to hand themselves to God, and to convince the world that God is real. But what can we imitate this dyer's daughter, who lived for most of her life in Siena, lived in a little house, still there, about a 5-minute walk to St. Dominic and today St. Catherine of Siena as well. What we can imitate her of is that, like the rest of us poor sinners, she too had to persevere in the grace of God, every day like you and me, to fight off her fear with the grace of God during the times of war and Black Death, like you and me during this time of uncertainty. She too had to be nourished by the grace of God, especially the Holy Eucharist. She too felt the discouragement of her own wretchedness. Sometimes, when we hear the saints talking about their own wretchedness, we often think the saints speak so insincerely. You and I often will think, you are so holy, so close to God. How would you know the real wretchedness of us? Poorest among the poor, the most wretched among the wretched. Well, I presume here every one of us has a car. After having carefully washed your car, when you drive towards the sun, what happens? Those few water spots speak to you more loudly than a windshield full of bugs while driving away from the sun. The more the saints and us advance towards God, the more we feel in the depth of our soul the chasm that exists between God and us, God's goodness and mercy, and our misery. And the more we know God's goodness and mercy, in proportion we know the true depth of our misery. But not with discouragement like St. Catherine of Siena, but with a profound gratitude. It shows how much God bends down to love us. But what can we imitate, more importantly, of St. Catherine of Siena, if one thing we take away? So there's another friend of mine who lives in Siena. His name is John Marco. I believe he's with us today. So John Marco would come to my mass every morning at 8 at San Cristoforo. I was so impressed by his devotion. I wanted to know him. So we made a point to have dinner once every 2 weeks. The first time we met, he took me. We met, I think, 7:30 in front of San Cristoforo after Mass, after adoration, might be 8 o'clock. They eat late there. So he took me, before we went to dinner, he took me to the Duomo. He said, I gotta show you something. We went to the Duomo, the piazza, there's nobody there. You see the Duomo, in its beauty at nighttime, it's truly beautiful. Without tourists, just you and the Duomo. Then he took me down to the back steps of the Duomo. Since the Duomo is built on the hill, the back steps is very, very steep. He showed me a star on one of the top steps. He said to me, do you know why the star is here? I said, no, please do tell me. He said, St. Catherine of Siena would run every morning from her house uphill to the Duomo for Mass. Why she would run? Because she was so eager to receive Jesus. She couldn't wait to be united with our Lord in the Holy Eucharist. One day, apparently the steps was very, very slippery. She fell and knocked her teeth out. This is what can imitate St. Catherine of Siena, because in the Holy Eucharist, it captures everything about God's love and mercy for us. Now this leads to us about the second wonder, if you will, in Siena, the Eucharistic Miracle at San Francesco. Well, I'm trying to catch up PowerPoint. So this is a picture I took from the, close to the city wall. And you can, from this picture, you can see how indeed spiritual the Sienese people are. The Basilica San Dominic and San Catherine, and the background is the Duomo. Talking about St. Catherine of Siena, this is a picture of the mosaic in our cathedral. Shows how important St. Catherine truly is to the church. We see on top, on the left-hand side, we see St. Ignatius Loyola, St. Benedict, and also St. Francis. St. Catherine of Siena is there along with him. Now we're talking about the Eucharistic Miracle in Siena. So people who love the Eucharistic Miracle in Orvieto, by the way, that one's indeed is a great one, especially when they have St. Thomas Aquinas composed in the Mass setting. People love that Eucharistic Miracle might argue with me. How would I say Siena possesses the greatest Eucharistic Miracle? Well, I did not say it. St. John Paul II did it, and just by chance I agree with him. The reason being the greatest is after 290 years, the consecrated hosts continue to be the body and blood of Christ. And there's no other Eucharistic miracle in the world like this one. Saints like St. John Paul II, Pope Emeritus Benedict both received the Eucharistic miracle, the Eucharist from the Basilica of St. Francis. And since we Catholics believe transubstantiation, the consecrated hosts at St. Francis have remained complete, and even with a natural brightness, with the color and scent of freshly baked unleavened bread. How did this Eucharistic miracle begin? Luca talked about it last week, the Palio, the Contradas. It's that in Siena, there are two horse races. One's in July to honor Our Lady. The August ones honor Our Lady's Assumption. If you go to the Duomo of Siena, you would discover the mosaic outside the Duomo is Our Lady being crowned as Queen of Heaven and Earth. So obviously, it's a very important feast day to the Sienese people. So in 1730, the town gathered for a night of vigil and devotions for the feast day. So while all the Sienese people attended the service, at evening time, thieves came and picked the lock in the tabernacle and stole the golden ciborium. So the theft wasn't discovered until next morning, when the friar opened the tabernacle to distribute Holy Communion. And then, obviously, informed the archbishop and the entire town. So 2 days later, and in this church, St. Mary of Provenzano, Lady of Providence. So this priest was praying. For some reason, while he was praying, he felt drawn to the poor box. But the poor box only opened once a year. He was drawn to the poor box. He had opened it for himself. When he opened the poor box, and he discovered the host, thus 348 hosts, later they counted. And then he called the archbishop, the representative of the archbishop, and the friars from St. Francis came and compared with the unconsecrated host of St. Francis, realized it's the same, with the same mark of the iron that made the host. So 2 days later, they held a great procession back to St. Francis. And then you might wonder, after almost 3 centuries later, why those hosts are never consumed. I think the logical reason is, logical explanation being, I believe, is the most logical, is people there are so devout. And the people in Siena and people from neighboring towns would have come to make a reparation for the sacrilegious our Lord received. And that's why, and that forced the friars at St. Francis had to preserve the Blessed Sacrament. But as time went on, to the amazement of the clergy at St. Francis, the host never deteriorated, ever remained fresh, even remained a pleasant scent. So with the passage of time, the monks at St. Francis began to believe they are witnessing a miracle, a continuing miracle of preservation. So 50 years later, on April 14th, 1780, and upon tasting one of the host, still remained fresh, incorrupt, and they conducted the first experiment in 1789. So the archbishop ordered a container of unconsecrated hosts to be placed in a sealed box and kept under lock and keys, a lock in the chancery office. So 10 years later, when they opened the box, the host, unconsecrated host, disfigured. Then 61 years later, they opened an unsealed box. They found nothing but particles and dust. In the meantime, the consecrated hosts remained their original freshness. Obviously, throughout the years, multiple examinations were conducted. The most recent one is in honor of the 250th anniversary, 1980. But unfortunately, in 1950, the Eucharistic Miracle was stolen again. But this time, by the goodness, the kindness of the heart of the thieves, they simply stole the ciborium and left the host in the tabernacle. So today, I believe in the summertime, when you go there, you still can venerate the Eucharist Miracle in the ciborium. You can see through ciborium. Still our Lord, his body, his blood. Sometimes you might wonder, my friends, why does God allow this great miracle to take place in our midst? For a very simple reason. To make himself believable. But let's think for a moment. God has no need to prove his existence to us at all. He's God. But yet, in order for us to receive his love and mercy, to receive all his benefits, he constantly makes himself known to us. He constantly comes as our servant. He seems to desperately wants to make known to us, sometimes hardened sinners, he truly loves us. St. Therese even said, our Lord did not come down from heaven to dwell in the golden ciborium. He wants to find another dwelling place, your soul and mine. the God whom heaven and earth cannot contain, yet he so desires to come to us to dwell in a humble soul. Very often we think our faith, this is the Eucharistic miracle. Often we think our faith is so burdensome and nothing but rigid rules and cold doctrines. Meanwhile, we have no clue our faith is relationship. So last week after class, last Friday, with Enzo, and I was just dozing off a little. In the meantime, I can prepare my homily for Ascension. I believe some of you heard my homily last Sunday. And I was fixated on this conversation between the Heavenly Father and the Son. And obviously in God, there's no time. When did this conversation take place? No one knows, in eternity, right? But can you imagine the Father and the Son knowing full well the suffering the Son had to endure while to come down to save us, right? The rejection, the cruelty, the ingratitude, the insult, the suffering, and ultimate death from crucifixion. Also knowing what appears the Son's heart also appears the Father's heart. Having known that so full well, God the Father chose to send his Son out of love to save us. And God the Son, out of love for the Father and for us, the all-powerful God freely chooses to come visibly in the form of a weak servant in order to die and we may live. True, the way we treat our God at times can't deserve him to fly away on the cloud to abandon us completely. No, he doesn't. He goes to heaven, interceded for us before the Father, extending his wounded hands and side, begging for mercy. He's not satisfied with that. He comes down on the altar every day to feed us with his body, with his blood. With all that having been said, now you know why I love Siena. To live under the shadows of St. Catherine of Siena and the greatest Eucharistic miracle. So hopefully someday when this coronavirus is over, maybe as a parish we can have a pilgrim to Siena and to be able to see for ourselves. We see when we believe. So let me close this presentation with a simple prayer from St. Catherine of Siena. I grow more and more fond of it. She often would close her letters with a simple phrase. Dolce Gesù, Gesù amore. Sweet Jesus, Jesus love. All right, any questions? Okay, I guess you can unmute yourselves now, see if any questions.
Thank you, Father. That was really, really interesting and really inspiring.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much. From Savannah, Georgia in the U.S.
Well, welcome. Hopefully we'll be able to go back together.
Yes.
Any questions?
Hi, Father. Really nice job coming from Wisconsin here. What surprised you most about Siena when you were there that was maybe unexpected or just something that struck you?
Yeah, I think obviously, having seen photos of Siena, and you kind of come to expect the architecture, right? The art and everything else being so rich. But I think if anything else, I think often we hear, the faith in Europe is dead, people don't go to church anymore. I was genuinely surprised the faith of the people in the evening. In the evening, when I often stop at adoration on my way home, at San Cristoforo, they have 7 p.m. Mass and adoration. The place always full of people for adoration. When I go to confession at St. Dominic, St. Catherine of Siena, there are always people there praying the rosary. I think they have not abandoned their devotions. Probably they have preserved the devotion more so than us in the U.S. And that surprised me. The people there I think I told Enzo, there's an Italian word called simpatico. It's hard to translate, not simply just nice. You know, more than that, it's just like, I guess, the utter sincerity. I think I'm almost like a Midwest, the utter sincerity towards people. Yeah, the people, as I said earlier, you know, it's the people make the place beautiful.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Father, congratulations on your anniversary. Glad to have you with us at this point. From what you're saying, it sounds like Siena is very much a walking town rather than a driving town.
Yeah, Siena, because Siena is truly medieval town, and the streets still narrow, right? And the buildings have been there for 1,000 years, so they haven't changed anything. But Siena, you can drive. But I told Enzo this morning, I'm afraid of driving Siena because a lot of one-way streets, narrow streets. Like, it took me a little while to get used to in the mornings that, you know, you walk, you have cars behind you, you know, waiting for you to step aside so the car can pass through. You know, but after a while, get used to it. You know, you just, when the car comes to you, almost immediately, you know, right at you, and then you move away. No reason to be fearful of the car. They get used to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but you can, you know, there's taxi stations everywhere in the city. Like by the San Martino, there's a taxi station. And another interesting thing in Italy is that you cannot just simply, you know, call a taxi. You go to taxi stations to, you know, to get a taxi. Right, any other questions?
I have a question. I'm just wondering, this is Mary, Mary Edge. I'm wondering if all your talk about your daily routine in Siena, if there's anything in...
Mary?
Yes.
I didn't quite hear you, the second part.
Oh, sorry. Is there anything in St. Catherine's daily routine?
I think I kind of fitting in and now. I think I know exactly what you said. In the routine of St. Catherine of Siena, right? St. Catherine of Siena had every morning she either go to St. Dominic, there's the Basilica of St. Dominic, or the Duomo for Mass. And after Mass, she would pray, spend many hours in prayer, but very often she get caught up in levitation, ecstasy. And then after that, and obviously God called her to live in the world during the Black Death, the Black Death plague. Very often she would go to Santa Maria delle Scale, to the hospital in front of the Duomo to serve the poor there, those affected by the plague. So yeah, that's how how would she begin her day? Those days receiving communion daily wasn't so permissive, but her spiritual director gave her permission to receive communion every day. That's why she went to Mass every day, eagerly. Any other questions?
Yeah, Father, I have a question. First of all, happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Also, what was the book that you read about Catherine of Siena? That you read?
Yeah, literally entitled, Catherine of Siena. If one moment, let me go to my library, grab it. It is this book by Ignatius, written I'm not going to butcher her name, but this I believe is she won some Nobel Prize, I think a Nobel Prize winner novelist, and she did extensive research on this book, and a lot of direct resources from Blessed Raymond. I think he was St. Catherine of Siena's spiritual director for a long time, until he became the general for the Dominicans.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's next for you, Father?
What's next for me? I believe our university is going to open up. I received an email 2 weeks ago from the Casa Santa Maria. Is that they're going to opening up pretty soon. They asked us to prepare for a visa application, have an assignment letter sent to the Nunciature stamp sent to Rome, and then we'll begin our application process. So my plan is, I believe Italy is opening up on June 15th. My plan is to return Italy in July. I go to Siena, spend 2 more months there, study Italian with my friend Enzo, my teacher, and try to get to a higher level than the school requires. So when the fall starts, I have a better, better fluent, a little more fluent. I'll be able to kind of comprehend a bit more than now.
So back to Siena then.
Back to Siena, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, if if there's a cathedral monastery, I might in Siena, I might move to Siena permanently.
Yeah, that would be a step up, right?
Yeah, big step up. No. I love the cathedral, but in terms of personal spirituality wise, I cannot find a better city to sense to be inspired in. And just the city is so close. It's Saint Christopher in the middle almost. Everything is 10 minutes, 15 minutes walk. Not give another example. There's so many saints in Siena, right? So my last Sunday in Siena, after morning mass at 8 a.m. and Sunday is kind of awkward for me because at the cathedral I had so many things to do, masses and confessions. In Siena, nothing to do. So I would, as I said earlier, I would go and visit different churches. So John Marco said you should visit, the Basilica dei Servi, the Servites. So my last Sunday there, I just after mass and took a walk, prayed my rosary, got there. The church was open, but no one was there. I presume mass was later. It's a beautiful basilica. I walked in. I was only one, and on the west transept of the church, and there was a blessed of Servite laying there in his habit, cropped. Just right there. I said, I have no idea who you are, but you know who I am. So pray to God for me, so I may become a saint like you, right? Then across the church, go to the east side, the transept. There's now the Servites laying there and incropped. Just I said the same thing. I have no idea who you are, but pray for me. This Siena, yeah, so many saints.
Father Joseph, this is Nick Niemann. First of all, wonderful job. So great to hear about Siena and about your experiences there, and congratulations on your 10th anniversary.
Thank you.
Do you have a favorite story about St. Catherine from her youth or about later in life when she helped to convince the Pope to move back to Rome?
Yeah, I think if all the stories are very, very particular about one thing, a conversion of souls, right? A conversion of her souls. Obviously that gift reading souls. When people come to her and she would often even often she being accused as a hypocrite, right? Had levitation. People accuse her to be possessed by demons and etc. All these horrific accusations. She not only endured it with humility, but even prayed for the conversion of those who caused her great suffering. In particular, two priests. Most really tell two priests. One's a hermit, and living a hermit life, and known for his eloquent preaching, and just was decided to expose. I couldn't remember his name. Was decided to expose St. Catherine of Siena of her hypocrisy. But now, when she came to St. Catherine of Siena, even though couldn't find anything false with anything she said, and still wasn't convinced. And St. Catherine of Siena said to the hermit, he said, "You resolve to live a life of poverty, but then why do you have so many books? Not only one room, but 2 rooms. Live so luxuriously." Catherine of Siena never been to his hermitage, right? And then he converted, became a faithful friend of Catherine, and very often St. Catherine would go to different cities, and she was ordered to go with 3 priests. Why is that? Well, because St. Catherine of Siena would do the preaching, and then you had the 3 priests reading confessions simply because St. Catherine of Siena would be able to tell your sins, save your soul. How can you not good confession? Another favorite story of mine was St. Catherine of Siena was young, and her father being won over by St. Catherine's love for God. So St. Catherine Siena had a permission from her father to give away anything she sees fit. To the point, her siblings will lock their doors. Because St. Catherine Siena, when the poor comes, St. Catherine would go to her siblings' rooms to grab whatever she could find. But, she would always serve the best wine to the poor. But there's, these Italy, it's Siena in the middle of the wine country. So, but there's a miracle that doesn't matter St. Catherine Siena how much good wine, from this barrel, big barrel, even though, give to the poor. And the family keep drinking from this barrel. They went on almost, I think, 2 years. The barrel never went dry. It shows when you show generosity, and God cannot be outdone in generosity. Any other questions?
She hasn't taken the place of your real favorite, Saint Therese, has she?
She has not. She has not. But I imagine, we'll become more acquainted as time goes on the spiritual journey. As I said, I imitate her lawful souls. The other sense, like give another example, her love for God. And, I won't give you too many stories because, it's going to spoil this book. So our Lord gave her a stigmata. She begged our Lord not to make it known. Let her feel it, but not appear in her body. Because she did not want the glory and the exaltation, right? Only after she died, she passed away, and stigmata began to show on her hands, her feet, her side. In a sense, kind of similar to St. Therese with the hiddenness. Any other questions?
Father, would this recording be available for any friends or family who weren't able to tune in today? Or I'm not sure what the protocol is with the school, but
yeah, I think Dr. Luca can give a.
Yeah. It will be recorded, and I will send you all of you the link to the YouTube channel where it will be published. And let me add just one thing. Being a Sienese citizen, I'm very proud to be. I was close to cry when Father Joseph was talking about my city, because he was able to catch the spirit and the spirituality of this community. And this is something that I really love, to see how some people, maybe not everyone, but some people can see us, can analyze us and understand our soul. Thank you.
My pleasure. Just I feel Siena it's become part of me. I'm part of Siena. It just short time in Siena, my spiritual life just like, God used St. Catherine, Eucharistic Miracle really kind of opened a new horizon for me. And just every day I go to St. Catherine, I beg St. Catherine, I don't know who you are, I don't know you very well. I beg God for the grace and we love God as much as you love him. And truly the Sienese people, just incredible, just incredible. You cannot wait to go back and cannot wait, looking for many years of friendship with my friends in Siena. And so if I may say one thing, hopefully won't, embarrass you too much. And through you, and truly through you, I come to see, for all of you having a school, not simply, a livelihood. It's for you as a mission. The way with what humility serve others, And that really touched me. You know, just from the first day I was at school, just how helpful, you know, every one of you with anything. You know, not since, yeah, just a sense of community, a sense of, you know, helping each other, the sense of charity, and just very humbled.
Father, congratulations. Congratulations on your 10th anniversary.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for the introduction to Siena. I am hopeful that as you become familiar with other parts of Italy, you will find them just as hospitable and rich in culture and in the tradition of the church. Siena's got a tremendous history and culture that goes way, way back. And there are many other parts of Italy that do the same. You are going to enjoy your stay in that country.
I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will. I will.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Grazie mille. Una presentazione bellissima, wonderful presentation. And Luca was crying. I cried. So me too. Thank you so much. And me and you, we promise that next time it will be in Italian. All right? Ok. Facciamo la presentazione in italiano.
Sì, forse.
No, forse, for sure, because you are a very good student. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Pleasure all mine.